The bartender, named Jake, had spent most of his life in the small town of Willow Creek. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he would pull open the heavy wooden doors of the bar he worked at. The place was more than just a job for him. It felt like home. The warm amber glow of the lights and the familiar sounds of laughter and clinking glasses welcomed him like an old friend. Jake loved the regulars, grizzled farmers, retired school teachers, and young couples on date nights. Each person brought their own stories and energy, filling the bar with life. He knew their orders by heart. Mr. Thompson preferred a cold beer, while Lisa often opted for a sweet cocktail. As he wiped down the counter, Jake took pride in creating a cozy atmosphere where people could relax and share their troubles. His daily routine was simple but fulfilling. Mornings were spent restocking supplies while afternoons flew by as he prepared for the evening rush. In between serving drinks, he would share jokes with patrons or lend an ear to their stories. It was this connection that fueled his love for the bar, a little haven in the world where he could see the joy on people's faces. Yet, beneath his cheerful exterior, Jake sensed that change was on the horizon. Little did he know that a stranger was about to walk through those doors, ready to turn his world upside down. The evening began like any other in Willow Creek, with raindrops tapping against the windows, creating a comforting rhythm inside the bar. Jake was serving drinks, sharing laughs with his regulars, when the door swung open with a creak. In walked a stranger, drenched from the rain and cloaked in a long, dark coat that hung heavy on his shoulders. The bar fell silent for a moment as all eyes turned to the newcomer. His presence was striking, sharp features framed by tousled hair and an air of mystery that surrounded him. As he stepped inside, water pooled around his feet, and he shook his head like a dog drying off after a swim. The warm glow of the bar lights caught his intense gaze, and for a brief second, it felt as if time had stopped. Jake approached cautiously, looking for signs of trouble but sensing only curiosity from the patrons who whispered amongst themselves. The stranger took a seat at the end of the bar, nodding slightly in acknowledgement. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made Jake's instincts tingle. "I'm looking for a game," he said simply, glancing around at the other customers. With those words, the atmosphere shifted. Excitement mixed with apprehension as everyone leaned in closer to hear more about this mysterious visitor who had just stepped into their quiet world. The stranger leaned forward, his eyes glinting with mischief as he placed his hands palm down on the bar. "How about a card game?" he proposed, his voice smooth yet commanding. The words hung in the air, and Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. A few patrons exchanged nervous glances, while others leaned in closer, intrigued by the challenge. "High stakes," the stranger continued, a crooked smile forming on his lips. "I'd say $100 a hand, winner takes all." The proposal sent ripples of excitement through the bar, but uncertainty lingered as well. Jake glanced at the regulars. Some were eager to join, while others looked wary of the stranger's boldness. "We don't usually do that here," Jake said cautiously, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He could sense a tension building. It was a small-town bar where games were played for fun, not for money. Yet something about the stranger's confident demeanor pulled everyone in like a moth to a flame. "Come on," he urged, leaning back slightly. "What's life without a little risk?" There was an electric energy in the air as curiosity battled with caution. After a moment of hesitation, one brave soul stepped forward, saying they'd join him. Soon, voices rose in enthusiastic chatter as more patrons expressed their desire to play, unaware that this game would lead them into uncharted waters. The bar buzzed with energy as Jake prepared for the card game, a mix of excitement and nervous tension hanging in the air. He moved behind the counter, gathering a worn deck of cards that had seen countless friendly games over the years. The familiar feel of the cards reassured him, yet today felt different. Stakes were higher, and the atmosphere crackled with uncertainty. Jake watched as the players gathered around a makeshift table in the corner, their faces illuminated by the dim light overhead. A handful of regulars and a few newcomers eyed each other warily, sizing up their competition. The stranger leaned back in his chair, exuding confidence, while others fidgeted, adjusting their seating and clearing their throats. "Are we ready to play or what?" he teased, breaking the silence that had momentarily engulfed the room. His challenge only heightened their eagerness. Jake shuffled the cards one last time before dealing them out, aware that many of these patrons had probably never played for money before. As he handed over drinks to the players, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into unknown territory. The atmosphere grew tenser as Jake watched their expressions shift from excitement to fear, realizing that this game held more than just money at stake. It was about pride and reputation in their small community. As the first round began, Jake felt a buzz of excitement course through him. He watched intently as the cards were dealt, each player's face showing a mix of confidence and trepidation. The stranger immediately took control of the game, playing his cards with uncanny precision. Each successful hand he won made the stakes feel heavier, and the tension in the room thickened like smoke. The rhythmic shuffle and sound of chips clattering against one another echoed throughout the bar. Jake moved around, filling glasses to keep his patrons fueled for the evening ahead, but a knot of anxiety formed in his stomach. He sensed that not everyone was equipped for such high-stakes gambling. This wasn't the friendly fun they were used to. As more money changed hands, emotions ran wild. Some players shouted in triumph at good hands, while others slumped down in defeat, their faces revealing disappointment and frustration. Jake could see familiar faces turn unfamiliar. A friendly game had morphed into something more intense and personal. He felt torn. He was thrilled by the excitement yet fearful of where it might lead. Each round seemed to push boundaries further, with glances exchanged between players that hinted at underlying rivalries. Jake's heart raced, aware that this game was about more than just money. It tested friendships and reputations in ways none of them had anticipated. As the rounds progressed, the stranger's demeanor shifted from confident to almost predatory. With each hand he won, his smile grew wider and more assured, while the other players' expressions darkened with unease. The atmosphere in the bar turned electric, charged with tension as the stakes continued to rise. Jake could feel the weight of every lost dollar pressing down on the players, turning their excitement into anxiety. The clinking of chips became a stark reminder of how quickly fortunes could change. The regulars who once laughed and joked were now silent, their eyes glued to the table as if it held all the answers. Some players started to sweat, glancing nervously at one another, realizing they were out of their depth against this mysterious opponent. Jake observed as the stranger casually leaned back in his chair after another victory, his confidence radiating like heat from a fire. He reveled in the game, basking in the tension he created among others. "You're all playing too cautiously," he taunted with a laugh that echoed through the bar. This only heightened the anxiety of the other players, who felt trapped between their desire to win and their growing fear of losing everything they had put on the line. As Jake poured drinks and watched them struggle under pressure, he wondered how much longer this game could last before someone snapped or made a terrible mistake. Just as the tension in the bar reached its peak, the stranger's gaze shifted from the cards to Jake, a sly grin spreading across his face. "You know, I think it's time to raise the stakes even further," he declared, leaning forward conspiratorially. The room fell silent, every eye now on the bartender, who felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" Jake asked cautiously, already sensing that whatever came next would not be good. The stranger's eyes glinted with mischief as he leaned back, fingers steepled under his chin. "Let's make this game personal. I want a piece of you in this round." The implication hit like a thunderclap. Jake's heart raced as he processed the stranger's words. "You can't be serious," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is just a card game." "Oh, but it's about more than cards now," the stranger insisted, his tone dropping to a low murmur that sent shivers through Jake. "If I win this hand, I want your bar. A nice little stake for my collection." The room erupted into gasps and murmurs of disbelief. The stakes were no longer just monetary. They had turned into something much darker and more personal. Jake's thoughts raced as he faced the reality of the situation. Losing the bar meant losing his livelihood and the community he cherished. With every player now looking to him for guidance, Jake realized the game had taken a turn he never anticipated. pushing him into a corner where he had to make a choice that could change everything. Jake's heart raced as he stood behind the bar, weighing the gravity of the stranger's demand. The thought of losing his beloved bar felt like a punch to the gut. Willow Creek was more than just a job for him. It was his life and the place where he forged friendships that spanned years. The faces of his loyal patrons flashed through his mind. People who came to him not just for drinks but for companionship and support. He recalled the countless nights spent sharing stories and laughter with them, their joy entwined with his own. The idea of surrendering that sense of community to a ruthless gambler felt unbearable. Yet, at the same time, Jake had to consider the reality of risking everything. Financial security, reputation, and even safety. What would happen if he said no? Would the stranger lash out in anger, escalating tensions further? As he glanced at the players gathered around the table, their anxious expressions mirrored his own fears. They were counting on him for leadership in this moment. They were friends who looked to Jake for strength when facing challenges. But could he lead them while weighing his own survival against their loyalty? Torn between protecting his livelihood and standing up for those he cared about, Jake felt trapped in a dilemma that could change not only his life, but also theirs forever. As the final round approached, the tension in the bar reached a boiling point. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing his desperation. He watched as the cards were shuffled with a sense of dread and urgency, knowing that everything hinged on this moment. The stranger, leaning back in his chair with an unsettling calmness, looked as if he owned the entire room. His confidence radiated like a cold aura, sending chills down Jake's spine. Jake felt the weight of the eyes around him, his loyal patrons who had gathered not just to witness a game but to support him. He could see their anxious expressions, mirroring his own inner turmoil. The stakes had never been so high. The stranger's chilling demand loomed over them all like a dark cloud. As the dealer laid out the final cards, time seemed to slow. Jake could hardly breathe, acutely aware that this single hand could dictate his future. He glanced at the stranger, whose mouth twisted into a smug grin, revealing a predatory glee that sent waves of panic through Jake. "Ready to lose it all?" the stranger taunted, his voice smooth yet laced with menace. The laughter that erupted from him cut through the tension in the room, fueling Jake's desperation. With each passing moment, he realized that this was not just a game anymore. It was a battle for his life, his livelihood, and the essence of his very being in Willow Creek. As the final cards were revealed, a heavy silence fell over the bar. Jake's heart sank as he stared at the hands spread before him, feeling the weight of defeat settle like a thick fog. The stranger's triumphant laughter echoed in his ears as he laid down an unbeatable hand, claiming victory with ease. "Looks like I'll be taking ownership now," the stranger said with a chilling smile, turning to face the gathered patrons. Jake felt hollow as the realization washed over him. His beloved bar was slipping away. The cheers and jeers of the other players faded into a dull roar as he struggled to comprehend the consequences of this game. No longer simply a place for drinks and laughter, his bar represented years of hard work and community, the very fabric of Willow Creek. As word spread through town about the shocking turn of events, friendships fractured under the strain of tension and disappointment. Regulars who had once come together in camaraderie now faced an uncertain future without their refuge, Jake's warmth missing from their gatherings. In that moment, Jake understood that his life would never be the same. He had unintentionally opened the door to chaos in his once peaceful community. The stranger had not just won a card game. He had taken away a piece of Jake's soul, reshaping Willow Creek in an irreversible way that would haunt him long after the cards were put away. In the wake of the game, as Jake stood amongst the remnants of his dreams, he couldn't help but reflect on the choices that had led him to this moment. Each decision, whether to embrace risk or play it safe, seemed to ripple outward, shaping not only his fate but the fabric of his community. The bar, once a sanctuary of laughter and camaraderie, now lay in disarray under the weight of a stranger's victory. Jake felt a deep sense of loss, not just for his bar but for the relationships that had been tested and strained. He realized that every choice comes with its consequences, and sometimes those choices define who we are more than we can imagine. His desire to stand up for his patrons had inadvertently endangered their friendships and futures. While he grappled with despair, there emerged a faint glimmer of resilience. Perhaps this was an opportunity for growth rather than an end. Jake understood that he could rebuild and learn from this experience, sharing valuable lessons about caution and community spirit. As he looked around at the familiar faces still present, he recognized their shared pain. They were all weathering this storm together. It was clear now that choices could lead to hardship but also foster unity. In the heart of Willow Creek, a new chapter awaited, where lessons learned could guide them toward healing and hope in unexpected ways.